everybody, welcome to Open Mic Night number 55. So, I think I've seen a couple of new faces tonight, so welcome everybody. My name is Blaise, if I haven't said hello to you. I have been away, and from what I can tell, the place was running very smoothly without me, so I might just go again. So, what do you think? It sounds like they ran Open Mic Night really well, so I'm not really needed. So
you start where you are.
I'm more than happy to keep walking in Spain.
We missed you.
We saw you.
You saw me, yes.
Yeah. Was it the film?
Yes. Yep.
We waved to you in Spain.
Yeah, it was fun. That was very bizarre. I was actually sitting in the middle of this in Astorga in Spain, in this like a big square, and there were a whole lot of other pilgrims eating there, and they could tell because I was a bit hot and bothered. It was a really hot day, and they were listening into all of my conversation. But it was really funny because it was like surreal that I was on the other side of the world. It was cool. So it was fun. So I missed you guys, even if I was having fun. So we actually have 20 readers tonight.
Wow.
Maybe 21. Yep. Can you take that up, Ken? So I will start with Laura. Where's Laura? Yes?
How long have we got?
How long have we got? I think 40 minutes. 4 minutes is okay still.
40?
Yes, 4 minutes. we do want to go home to bed tonight, so 4 minutes, yeah. I think that's still okay. I didn't read what you were reading, Laura, so if you can tell us. Welcome.
Well, how much time was it?
4 minutes, please.
Thank you, I'm really short. Okay. Hi everyone. Apologies if my voice shakes. This is only the second time I've ever read in front of an audience, and I'm super nervous. This story is called Coldblooded. It's about my nonna, or my grandma. So I'll begin now. Her name is Maria, and she loves to sing, but her voice has not often been heard. She keeps it quiet, barely lets it breathe, barely lets herself breathe. Luigi is her husband, and she loves him, as a wife must, as a wife of her time is required to do. There is no such thing as divorce, then, no such thing as depression or emotional abuse, no space for a woman to say, this isn't right. Luigi has no escape from his mind, and she has no escape from him, except when she sings, except when she is alone. That's when she lets her curly red hair out of its bun, pulls the memory of a smile onto her face and the words from her soul. Sometimes she will sing the words, and sometimes she will simply hum a tune from her youth. She doesn't really have a preference. The important thing is the feeling, the freedom of self-expression, a joy unlike any she has ever known. She sings less when her children are born. The need isn't there. The hole inside, her 4 babies fill it with their existence, with what they call her to be, mother. Luigi loves them too, in his way. He's not very good at showing it, and she has to hold her tongue over and over again, as his is turned on the 4 of them, a weapon in some ways harsher than physical blows could be. It impacts each of them differently, and Luigi's form of love bleeds into the adults they become, even after his unexpected death. She doesn't know what to do when she hears the news that he is gone. How could it be? He'd been beside her when she'd woken up just a few hours earlier. He'd kissed her cheek before he left for the farm. And in retrospect, she thinks that maybe some part of him realized he wouldn't be coming back. Affection didn't come easily to him, and Maria knows how hard it is to approach something that scares you. The last person he'd loved was his father, right up until the moment he found him hanging from the rafters in their attic. She cries, and her children take turns to hold her and reassure her that she is not alone. Not alone? The person she has lived with for the last 30 years has disappeared, dropped out of the world, and she's supposed to believe she's not alone? She's been one of a pair for so long, Maria of Maria and Luigi, and now she is tasked with reimagining herself to fit a role she never wanted, widow. In this role, there are black clothes and somber expressions and loneliness. So much loneliness. There is no more singing, no point to it or to anything. And yet, on some level, she knows that she will sing again. Her children grow and leave the nest, one by one, as children must. And when they have children of their own, she embraces a new role, Nonna. When her daughters visit with her grandchildren and the babies won't sleep, Maria sits with them and hums the first notes that emerge, no filter and no intention, and without fail, her grandbabies are captivated. They lock their eyes with hers and hold her gaze as she grants them this lullaby, this slow recovery of self. Although she can't be sure, Maria thinks they recognize the authenticity of her sounds and the love that carries them to slumber. She doesn't want to leave Leeton. It feels like a betrayal and a final goodbye to her married life, but her children tell her that a new start might be just what she needs. When she arrives in Melbourne, she knows they are right. Life in a retirement village quickly becomes routine. Each day blends into the one before, until opportunity presents itself with a hand outstretched, and for the first time in a long time, Maria lets it take her. The village organises a day out to Frankston to see the sand sculptures and a concert by... and a concert by a singer she doesn't know, Carmela someone. The name stirs something in her, brings the flicker of a smile to her lips. She'd had a cousin called Carmela back in Italy. They hadn't spoken in years. For all she knows, her cousin Carmela is in her grave. But this Carmela, this woman whose bright red lipstick and even barred dress speaks of confidence and success, she is very much alive. The bus vibrates with the excitement of a dozen octogenarians eager for a day out. She has been waiting for this day, in some ways, for all her life. It seems as though Carmela's performance all of a sudden is drawing to a close. And then, do we have any Italians in the audience? Maria looks around furtively. No one else has raised their hands. She defies a lifetime of shyness and raises hers. Carmela descends the stairs. "Ciao, Bella," she booms. "What is your name?" "Maria," the old woman says. Carmela smiles warmly. "Get ready to sing along with me." The song is a famous one. Carmela closes her eyes, basking in it. She doesn't see that Maria does the same. They are transported, simultaneously in the world and outside of it, and it shows. On the bus home, she receives congratulations from her neighbours with less than her usual bashfulness. Shame has no place to thrive when she chooses to own her talents and her choices. She thinks moments and days like these are miracles. If our public lives are a lie and a construction, carefully crafted to reveal only the best of us, then it is in honesty and vulnerability that we see the truth. Her neighbours saw the truth of her that day, and it was a gift she offers them. For in singing there is confession. I ache, and I mourn for all I've seen. And there is an invitation. If she can strip herself bare and grow all the stronger for it, so too can they. It is a gift for herself, a settling into her skin, and a battle cry. I am alive and I have not been broken. I live and I triumph. Volare, I fly. Thank you.
In danger of winning the Oscar in the audience. Gives you a fright. You should try that in the middle of the night. Every now and again he does it in the middle of the night. Gives you a heart attack. I forgot to mention before, because I'm still in La La Land, is that Les is timing the 4 minutes, but at 3.5 minutes he'll ding once. So you still have 30 seconds, then he'll ding twice when the end of the time is up. Joan. Joan has 2 short stories for us. Poems, sorry, 2 short poems.
Blaise?
Yes?
Can you tell them about the camera? Okay.
Oh yes, Kev is videoing, filming all of the readings, and it will go up onto YouTube. So if you don't want to be on YouTube, please tell Kev.
Hello everybody. Ooh, that sounded very deep. I bring an apology and a greeting from Gay and Robin. They couldn't be here tonight. Does it bite?
Anything can happen in this part.
I guess everybody's been feeling the cold lately, especially early in the morning. Well, the first little poem came to me feeling the cold very early in the morning. It's called Dawn. The morning fog gathers her petticoats and skips barefoot across the mountain's reach. Her wispy tresses tangle in the trees. The bashful sun conceals his smile behind a cloud. And birds are loath to leave their cosy nests. A filtering light invades my tiny room. My tired eyes shake off their weariness. Regretfully, I shed my warm cocoon and face the day with expectancy. That's number one. And this, most of you are either involved with stories or enjoy stories, and this is my idea of a story. A story is a handsome edifice composed of words, each one a stately brick. Thoughts form the rooms of drama, joy and grief, tension, relief. Its passages are mysteries to explore, and hidden wonders lie behind each door. Thus, when complete, it satisfies the soul of each who builds and they who then behold. Thank you.
You'll see that there's quite a lot of books up here. All of these books has the author in this room, and actually Julie's just walked in, so I don't have yours because I didn't know you were going to be here. Kev, can you see Julie's is up there? Should be. So, how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10 authors have their books published here. So, have a chat to them. And what I would suggest with anyone who has a published book, always carry it with you. Always have copies in the car, so that when you're talking to someone and they want to buy it, you actually have it ready to go. You have to hustle a little bit. There's Julie's as well. So feel free to have a look. There's a mix of, oh, and Gay's not here, so I haven't put hers there, but there's a mix of poetry, memoir, fiction. What else is there? Self-help. So there's a bit of everything there. So just keep that in mind. Mary Lucic is going to read children's fantasy. Isabella, Airy Fairy, Abolus, and the Sleepy Dragon. That's not about me.
Yes, I've been publishing on Kindle, so it's been a great adventure, and I've got 2 of the 3 books for the Kingdom of Nerida series, which is wonderful. Okay, so it's a Mer Kingdom series with the dragons as well, suitable for 9 to 12. Cathedral awakens. When Cathedral finally woke, he searched high and low for his beautiful friend Nerida, and it was then he discovered he had arrived in the castle moat. He swam and thrashed about, unused to swimming so close to the surface. His rainbow monster dragon body circled, and suddenly he was hit by a log, and it hurt, so he became angry. Cathendral's head ached and ached. He became dizzy and swam up and back angrily, until he became vaguely aware that he was sharing the moat with a boat. This boat was tossed up and down as Cathedral thrashed about. Still there was no sign of Princess Nerida, the mermaid, for the princess may have been lost long ago, as he had been asleep for 100 years because of the sleep fairy, and he had no way of knowing where she could have gone. His mother Dottima, the striped and polka-dotted dragon, had said that Princess Nerida had been lost long ago, and travellers to the Mer Kingdom had told that she had passed away, but people knew of her and spoke of her existence in the kingdom above. Cathedral had rarely visited the surface, had never entered the castle above, and had very few experiences on land, but was, however, a highly powerful creature. Despite being 125 years old, was but a dragon in child in years. He had been told by his mother Dottima that he stopped being a sloth. If he stopped being a sloth and slept less and became fit, he could do anything, including fly, swim and explore the surface, breathe underwater and weave in and out of tight corners, for he could flatten himself and expand himself, and many claimed dragons of his particular species to be super dragons. Only when he was awake would Cathedral age, so although he was 125 years of age, he was almost certainly only 12 years intellectually, and there was a great world for him to discover above the surface. Cathedral loved to rest, to sit indolently in his lair, to sleep and to spend time doing little except watching Dottima collect fish, and his brother leave for wonderful hunting expeditions with fellow dragon Hilly. Grow, taller and wider than Cathedral, a more compact if muscular iron grey dragon, loved to spear local predators with his horn. They would weave in and out of rocky outcrops, fly up and down the underwater dunes filled with coral. They often opened their toothy, fanged-filled mouths and allowed tasty weeds to float in, whereupon they would snap and crunch, a warm-up for later bone-crunching activities. They travelled far and wide and had almost given up. The waters had grown murkier and a crop of golden seaweed disseminated fine leaf matter when Bro, Cathendra's brother, caught a glimpse of purple out of the corner of his eye. He spun around, a mermaid bled, and the water suffused with clouds of purple. She grimaced and curled over, her wound close to her heart. That was the Menosaurus attack.
Okay. Sandra is going to read some mindfulness. So actually what I'll do is I'll point, if the authors are reading tonight, I'll point out their book. So Joan, who read her poems here, that's her little book, Poetry, which was illustrated by her nephew, gorgeous illustrations as well. So have a look at that. Some of these books we actually have here for sale too. So, come on up. So, we have, where did I put it? I can't see upside down. Here. This is Sandra's book. Are you reading from your book?
I am.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone. I've written a book called Creating Mindful Moments, and it's sort of the stepping stone. I've just lost my page. Sort of the stepping stone into becoming mindful. Because when you do mindfulness, there's this expectation we have to be able to stop our thoughts, and if you can imagine trying to stop your breath, it's impossible. It just keeps going and the thoughts keep going. So it's more about creating another dimension within ourselves so that we become the observer of our thoughts, sort of just getting relaxed with that. So I'm going to read a mindful moment. I'm going to create a mindful moment. This one's called Just As I Am. And I've written it in the first 10, like I'm reading for myself, so that anyone who's reading from the book can feel it rather than saying you. So I'll do the same as I'm reading here. Just as I am, I find a place to relax. Let my shoulders drop. I sit with respect, accepting this moment just as I am. I focus on the rhythm of my breath. Notice the quality of my thoughts as I make space for all thoughts to come and go. At this moment, I embrace the things I like best about myself, and I accept the things I like not so much. At this moment, I embrace the things that I'm great at, and I accept the things I'm not so great at. Checking in on my thoughts, I welcome any emotions that show up. Breathing in and out as I accept myself just as I am, in light of any feelings that arise. I choose to accept myself totally. I choose to be safe and healthy. I choose to be caring and respectful of myself just as I am. When ready, I slowly bring my attention back to my surroundings, bringing a sense of acceptance with me as I move forward into my daily life. Thank you.
I actually felt the whole room just went. You should come into our workplace every day and do that. Rosemary is going to read an essay. Where's Rosemary? Hi, yep. Hi, Rosemary. I needed my mum.
Oh, short. There's so much about guilt and mothers, giving and receiving, but I need more than 4 minutes for that, so I'm not going to be. So, I needed my mum. I needed my mum when I was born. I needed her warm skin against me as I nursed. I needed her soft arms around me, singing me to sleep, soothing my cries, just holding me. I needed my mum as a toddler. I needed her to read to me. I needed her to play with me. I needed her to hold me. I didn't need my mum as a teenager. I didn't need her help with my homework. I didn't want to play Scrabble with her. I didn't want her coming with me to school. I didn't want her hugging me. God, she was embarrassing. I hated her, actually. I didn't need my mum when I left home. I felt guilty about leaving home so soon. I was only 17, but I needed to run away from her control. I ran and I felt free. I didn't need my mum when I was 20. That's when I got married. Actually, I did need her once. I went to her for help and my husband hurt me. She said my place was by my husband. She rang him and told him to get his sorry ass over to me now. I didn't need my mum when my husband and I moved to Melbourne. I was starting a new life. I needed my mum when I felt pregnant. Now, why do we say we fall pregnant? Or you're walking along and in the whole of life, and all of a sudden there's a ditch, and you're minding your own business, and all of a sudden, wham, you fall pregnant, you fall in love, you fall asleep, you fall silent, you get crestfallen. Is that landing on a rooster's head? I don't know. Anyway, I needed my mum when I was pregnant. I needed her reassurance when I was bleeding, when I was terrified I would lose my baby. I needed my mum in the late stages of my pregnancy. She flew down from Brisbane and started telling me stories about every one of her 10 labours. Actually, I didn't need to hear those stories, particularly the terrifying ones of drama in the delivery room. Yeah, thanks for that, Mum. I needed my mum in the delivery room, and all sorts of problems were occurring. I looked at my mum's face. She was calm, reassuring, serene. I needed my mum in that delivery room. I needed my mum when I got home. I needed her to tell me my baby wouldn't drown in the tiny baby bath. I needed her to tell me that my baby's neck wouldn't snap if I picked her up awkwardly. I needed her to calm me when my baby cried, and I cried too. I needed my mum when I lost my second baby, when I was far, far away from home in Istanbul, when I came home from the hospital devastated and alone again, naturally. I needed my mum when my marriage was falling apart. I needed my mum to say, "Leave him," only she didn't. I needed my mum when I eventually left him, but I started to lose her then. Dementia was her black dog. I needed my mum to help me through the dark period of divorce. I needed her to tell me everything would be all right, but she seemed a stranger. Her words didn't make sense. My heart-to-hearts with her had become heart-to-ears only. I called her from my car on the way home from work where my kids wouldn't hear me speak ill of their dad. And I always ended up pulling over to the side of the road and weeping. "What have you done with my mum?" I cried. "Bring her back, I need her."
Kitty. This is Kitty's book, Juggling Health and Wealth. Are you reading from your book or are you doing something else? Okay, but that's her book.
My books are in. Anyone is interested, you can come and see me after. Tonight I'm going to be reading a few articles that I've written for my local paper where, you know, they've actually got a health corner that I've sort of published in, and it's called Keeping Health in Mind. And in there I've got a few different exercises. The first one is called distressing exercise. The first one, what I'd like you to do is to sort of go through it with me as I read this. So bring yourself into the present moment by deliberately adopting a dignified posture. Then ask yourself, what is going on with me right here, right now? You simply allow yourself to observe whatever happens. Label any thought that you have and then leave them alone. Just be prepared to let them float away. Attend to your breathing or simply take in your surroundings instead. Not hard here, isn't it? Because it's such a beautiful place. Besides thoughts, there may be sounds you hear, bodily sensations that you're aware of. If you find yourself constantly elaborating on thoughts rather than labeling them and returning to the neutral, remember to observe your breathing. When emotions or memories of painful events occur, don't allow yourself to become caught up by them. Give them short labels such as, that is a sad feeling, that is an angry thought, or just simply say to yourself, thinking. And then let all these feelings and thoughts go. Let them drift and float away. These memories and feelings will gradually decrease in intensity and frequency. More importantly, you will begin to identify yourself as an objective or silent observer, rather than a person who is disturbed by these thoughts and feelings. This requires practice, but can then be used whenever you are stressed. And I certainly have used it myself, and I find that very helpful, because by nature I'm quite a stressful person. Okay, and I've got two different mindful techniques and practices, exercises that I'm going to be doing with you guys, similar to what Sandra has done with us as well. Number one is what I call 1 minute exercise. So sit in front of a clock. I mean, this is when you actually go home and do it, but like you can just, you know, visualizing yourself doing it. Or watch that you can use to time the passing of 1 minute. So your task is to focus your entire attention on your breathing again, and nothing else, for the whole minute, or 60 seconds. Have a go before you go to sleep tonight and see how you feel. So that's the 1 minute exercise. And the second one is mindful eating. This involves sitting down at a table and eating a meal without engaging in any other activities. So there's no newspaper, book, TV, computer, music, or even talking. So eat your meal paying full attention to the piece of food that you select to eat. How it looks, how it smells, how it tastes. And when you cut the food, you actually experience the muscles you use to raise it to your mouth, and the texture to taste the food as you chew it slowly. So as you do things mindfully, you can really be paying attention and be in the present moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Kitty. We're all going going to be so missed out. Richard. Where's Richard sitting? Oh, right in front of me. So this is Richard's book. I don't know if you're reading from this book or you got a new one. Got a new piece? No? No, but have you got a new piece?
Got a new piece.
Cool.
Yes.
This is Richard's short stories, articles, poetry, bit of everything in there.
I'll read you probably 3 poems, depending on the bell ringer. The first one is called Darling. If she says, I answer to darling, that sure has to be a good sign, especially if I can't remember her name and she can't remember mine. It happens when least you expect it, when the first word you think of is wow, and you know that you want to pursue her, but the obvious question is, how? Then your eyes lock for one fleeting moment, just a moment, but frozen in time, and you feel the world changing around you. Then you glance back and look for a sign. And you realise she's looking straight at you, on her mouth just a hint of a smile. So you think that it's now or it's never, with your heart pumping hard all the while. As you take your first brave steps toward her, she comes to meet you halfway, and the world melts to mist all around you. All your life you'll remember this day. And now for something completely different. And still you wait. You wait at Gate Lounge B. The plane is late. But then the board says landed, so you wait. The passengers emerge, at first a trickle, then great hordes of them, who all greet other friends, and still you wait. Time passes, and eventually you get to know your few compatriots, those who wait for those who have not come, and still you wait. Gradually, patience turns into concern, your phone your only friend, but it is mute, and still you wait. The police stroll by and someone asks, how many more inside? None, comes the stern reply, but still you wait, confused, concerned and unbelieving. You send a text, where are you? Mind racing with imagined possibilities. And then a message chime rings out. It's yours, and gratitude floods through your veins. Relieved, you quickly read. Are you there already? I arrive tomorrow. Now for something else completely different. The colour of your soul. To write some lines as poets do, you said was surely not for you. Convinced you had no tale to tell, you delved into an unknown well, and found there unimagined grace, confronted beauty face to face. Your thoughts you found were flowing free, which came as no surprise to me. The sparkling lines your pen produced, revealed, excited and seduced, enhanced as soft light from afar, the tapestry of what you are. Those few lines made the picture whole. You showed the colour of your soul.
Thanks, Richard. You've been busy. Last time I saw you, you said you hadn't been writing for months.
No, I was waiting for you to go away.
That's mean. David Murray is going to read some fiction, The Archivist and the Spy.
Frederick Richard Mackenzie descended the spiral staircase of the archive in his dressing gown and slippers, lighting the way with a dimly flickering candle. He'd had his destination in mind since the Friday before, but never the resolve. The massive archive hall shimmered with the light of hundreds of candles, diligently lit by Frederick himself each night, as was required of him by duty. Should one of his supervisors choose this night to thrust open the heavy doors of the archive and seek out 1 or a dozen or 1,000 of their confidential dossiers, they should find their way well illuminated. And so it had been for almost a year. Often Frederick would speak to the archive, speak to the books, and speak to himself. He did this not for a lack of sanity, but for sanity's sake. He did this to prove to himself that he did, in fact, exist. But there was no speaking today. He felt no need to be reminded of his presence. Today had been the 358th day of solitude, and tomorrow was the last thing on his mind. He was heading to the parlour by the entrance to kill himself, a task for which he carried his service-issued Enfield revolver in the pocket of his gown. At the bottom of the stairs, he immersed himself once again in the labyrinthine maze of identical bookshelves, stocked top to bottom with identical leather-bound volumes. Frederick remembered his early days in the archive, where he'd lost his way for days at a time. But with nothing else to occupy him, he'd built a mental map of the hall and could now find his way in darkness. There was no urgency in Frederick's quiet steps. He held his candle before him, but his eyes took in no light, his ears took in no sound, his nose took in no smell. In his mind was nothing but a picture of his destination, a lonesome desk and a chair in which he'd never yet sat. Frederick's decision to end his life in this place was well considered. He'd arrived at the archive with only one other person, a man whose job it was to outfit the hall for Frederick's needs. He had built the chair and table from an old pew, and then left. Frederick had ever since felt guilty for never having used them, and for wasting the poor man's time. Tonight, though, he'd said it right. It wasn't a sound that woke Frederick from his reverie, but a movement in the air. It was so light that he didn't feel it, but rather he sensed the irregular flicker of his candle. The air did not move like that in the archive. Something was out of place. Frederick paused and let his eyes roam the bookshelves and the high candlelit ceiling. Everything first appeared as it always did. His eyes were so used to seeing the same scene that he didn't immediately notice that he was no longer alone. Once his eyes found the intruder, he realized he had been navigating by memory alone, and that his eyes had been dormant. There, right in front of Frederick, crouched a man in black, holding a candle of his own. With his other hand, this man in black foraged through the books on the shelf, discarding them one after another into a growing pile on the floor. He searched tirelessly, burrowing through the bookshelf like a ferret. His flame flickered fervently, wet wax dripping over the edge of the guard and onto the floor. Frederick watched him in quiet amazement. Slowly, the cogs in his mind started to turn, and action returned to his body. His free hand ran across the barrel of his gun and lingered on the hammer. And a moment later, he remembered it was a weapon. He drew the Enfield and pointed it at the intruder. "Spy," he said. Such a soft and gentle word spoken barely above a whisper, and yet it rippled through the silence like an explosion. The man in black recoiled violently, throwing his back against the bookshelf and toppling half a dozen volumes to his feet. In the movement, he lost the candle, whose brass holder clanged against the stone floor like an alarm bell. Light and shadow leapt across every wall in a kaleidoscopic dance until the candle came to rest against the fallen book, still aflame. Frederick found this most alarming of all. "Careful, you fool," Frederick said, and stepped forward. He glanced from his right hand, which held his candle, to his left, which held the gun, and failed to find a third with which to prevent a blaze. "Or pick it up, that might be your volume you're burning."
Coral Waite is going to read a travel story, a town called Lower Crackpot. That's a good name for a town. Coral also has an ebook out of her travel stories from Tasmania. So ask her about that if you want to have a link to it.
So this is from my Tassie book. It's called The Edge of the World Next Stop, Cape Horn. And this is a little excerpt from it. "I've always wanted to visit a town with the name of Lower Crackpot. It has to be something different. My sister says it reminds her of a man she used to know, but that's another story. It is different, as it turns out. It's a miniature village attached to the large maize and lavender gardens of Tasmania. It was created by Brian Inder. This must be the same Brian Ender whose beautiful poem is engraved on a plaque overlooking the ocean at Arthur River. He seems like a gentle and creative soul. This is his manifesto as the Laird of Lower Crackpot, chief of Clan Crackpot. Here at Tasmania, we do things the Crackpot way. Here fun and laughter rule. Love warms our mountain air. The broad and all-encompassing spirit is the canvas on which we paint our delight in the joy of life. A demanding character, impatience, self-centeredness, discourtesy, a mean spirit are not virtues here. They will not be allowed to pollute the sunshine of our day. This is not their place. The eccentric, the artist, the composer, the poet, the writer, the musician, and those who love these things, those of a soft and kind nature, those who suffer under the domination of cruder spirits, those who step to a different drum, the loners, the creators, the adventurers, the visionaries, the lovers, the givers and not the takers, the young at heart, the gentlefolk. This is their place. May their spirits dwell in eternal summer. I love miniature villages. My child takes over again, just for a little while. I want to shrink, as Alice does in Wonderland, and enter the post office, the fire station, the inn and the church. Vibrant colours are from childhood, when there were no rules to follow. Pink with turquoise, citrus green with teal, orange, powder blue. I passed GST House, the headquarters of the Liberal Party of Lower Crackpot, and the ivory tower of the local member, Sir Joe Bjelke-Petersen. An upside-down house, an extra wing continuing out from its roof, is the School of Lateral Thinking. The residential area is situated in Upper Lower Crackpot, but if you're looking for something a little more downmarket, Shirley's Joint in lewd, salmon pink, Dirty Shame Saloon, Wild Joe's Disco, and the Ivy Club, complete with a top hat for a roof, are at the sleazy end of town. Street gas lamps are dotted through gardens and hedgerows. It's a little run down. Chips and walls need replastering. Some buildings could do with a paint job, but the task of maintaining something like this must be enormous. I don't venture into the maze. I could spend the next 2 hours lost and panic-stricken, buffeted and scorned by fearless 10-year-olds, maybe even forgotten and locked in for the night. I did say my child takes over now and then. I climbed the lookout and watched them enviously, tearing around, wild and free for the moment. Mount Roland stands as a backdrop, keeping a paternal watch over it all. It's a place of enchantment, paint job or not. Thank you.
Thanks, Coral. Your travel stories always make me want to go to the place that you're talking about. Marcello's book, which is what I think you're going to talk about, Landing in Genostra. This is poems and paintings and drawings and all sorts from Genostra.
I think I should add that 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I had my first of the 3 exhibitions here at Busybird, and it was called The Voyages of the Boy from Genostra. As you know, Genostra is a big town now of about 37 people. Yeah. But when I, until 67 years ago, most of the day, I left my native from another island to go to Genostra with my mother to visit my brother, the priest, who had been recently posted there. The only way the communication was writing letters. So the letter would go from Genostra to mainland Sicily, then from there would be dispatched back to the other island. Why didn't it go from one island to another? Don't ask. Then we get back. So, we're full of excitement. I just finished my primary school, I'd been admitted to high school, and I was looking forward to go to this place, of which I'd never heard of. So we get the little rowboat from my to meet a bigger boat, sailing boat, And we eventually, after the 3 or 4 hours of signing, we get to Genoa. Well, we don't get there. We stop about half a mile from the coast, waiting for a rowboat to pick us up from the bigger boat and then take us back to the pier. Still, sort of looking, all I could see was cliffs, about 100 meters high, but I could not see any houses. I was wondering, what the heck is this? Where is my brother living? Where is this place? So we eventually got in, maneuvered, well, I did, rather precariously, because it's still the smallest port in the world. The entrance is about half the length of this room, and sort of the little rowboat went in this wide and then sort of jagged in, made sure it didn't touch the rocks, and the sea was calm, I must admit. And eventually we got alongside a little pier. I got helped, and my mum, because we were only 2 passengers, and I look up, and on top of the pier there is about 30 people. I'm surprised there was about less than a dozen under 20, but most of the people were like Maria and Luigi as our first speakers, sort of, oh, well, I said, so my brother was there, we hugged, we kissed, and he said, okay. And then I said, how do we get on? I said, well, see, you climb, so we climbed about 200 steps. They were staggered like this, on the side of the cliff. And eventually got onto a little landing there, which was very important, but I realised that the following winter. And then through a footpath, there was no road, and we managed to go to the presbytery. So people had already brought some food for us, and so we ate there, and it was fine. But I was still saying, I wonder how many people are there, because if that many came to see us, to greet us, I presume there's going to be a big crowd. So eventually I got to bed, and was really tired, and the presbytery was beautiful, small, nice and clean. I looked at the church, and it was really in pristine order. And so I went to bed. I got up fully to sleep. About 11 o'clock, I can see like fire coming from my room, and 30 seconds later, the first explosion of the volcano. So this was welcome, Marcello. I continue on that story after. But that was my big welcome to Genoa from the big brother of the volcano. We became friends, actually.
Antoinette Pellegrini is going to talk about the anthology. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Yep, cool.
Yes.
I'll let you explain. Affirmation card and a workbook. So that's really cool. Have a look at that.
All right, thanks, Blaise. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about my next project. It's an anthology series that I'm calling We Inspire Now. So the first book is about inspiring people approaching or over 50 to follow their dreams and pursue their passions. So the message of the book is it's never too late. So I'm really excited to have 7 amazing co-authors who are joining me in the project, and there's 4 here tonight. So Blaise, Noni, Jackie and Diane. We're all going to share our stories of overcoming difficulties and hurdles whilst never losing sight of our dreams, and finally working to make our dreams a reality. Of the 8 of us, we only have 1 man who's joining us, and it would be great to have more men, at least another 1 or 2 men, to be part of the project, because the message is just as important for men as it is for women. So if there are any men here who are interested, please let me know or Blaise know. So tonight I thought I'd just share some of my story. It's really just the first few minutes, and I haven't quite worked out whether it's actually going to be my story or part of the foreword to the book. It's still very much a work in progress, but I'll just share a little bit with you.
It's really my inspiration for what sort of made me sort of put this book together. So it was October 2015, and I was sitting on the beach at Koh Samui in Thailand with 3 of my girlfriends. It was a beautiful warm evening. The sun was setting over the water, changing the sky to hues of orange and yellow. The waves were lapping onto the shore, and we were enjoying watching the end of another idyllic day. Our conversation flowed, and soon we found ourselves talking about menopause. We were all in our early to mid-50s, so it was an obvious topic to talk about, even on the beach at sunset. Laughing and sipping cocktails, we compared notes about hot flushes, night sweats, our sex drives, and our relationships. Then one of my friends became serious and said that she was dreading the end of her period, because for her it meant that she was an old crone, that her life would no longer have purpose or meaning, and that it was all downhill from there. I was quite shocked by this. I couldn't believe that she felt like that. For me, menopause is different. I felt that it was finally getting me back. You know, my children were adults, and being in my 50s meant that it was finally my time to do what I wanted to do. And yet my friend felt the opposite. Was this difference between how I felt and how my friend, what was the difference between how I felt and how my friend felt? Was it simply that I was approaching getting older as something positive, something to look forward to, and she didn't? I know that your mindset affects, indeed in a very real sense, creates your outcome. And I realised that for me, menopause was a metaphor. It was a symbol that my life was not just about being a mother, although it'll always be that. It was that for the first time since I was 12 years old, my body was now just for me, and not just about giving to others. Somehow menopause allowed me, almost gave me permission to finally concentrate on me, to do what I wanted, to finally fulfill my dreams. That night I thought about what my friend had said and wondered how many other women feel that getting older means that they no longer have meaning or purpose. And did men also feel this when they got older? I managed to get to sleep, but woke up at 3 in the morning and started writing. So I had no choice. I felt driven to write a book to help inspire people to fulfill their dreams, to show them that it's not over and it's never too late to pursue their passion. So I'll stop there, but so let me know if you have an inspirational story that you'd like to share, and together we'll inspire each other.
Thanks, Antoinette. Patrick is going to read a poem, but I don't know what it's called.
Good evening, everyone. I've been writing poems since I was 10 years old, and along the way I've changed styles and formats and structures, and I've looked up to really fit for myself. And this poem was written in 1969. It's called Gaining Shadows. I chanced upon a journey into a depth of self, seeking be I who I am, be I someone else. Meandering through labyrinth caverns to examine what I could find, searching beyond abstract illusions in a darkened state of mind. Drifting bordering madness, clinging to threads of sanity. Voices within shadows whispered, come listen, we will set you free. In this darkened fabricated reality where I find myself to be, shadows gathered round, and we conversed with me. Like a soul lost, wandering an endless road, blind to life for you, in your cocoon abode. Your life seemed such an endless task, each day you wear a different mask, hiding feelings within your heart, wishing your life won't break and fall apart. How can I explain the way that I am, leading life within my head, delusioned by the things that I have seen and read? I know it's not easy for you to understand. The way that I feel is just the way that I am. Life seems like a forgotten dream, as something in pages of a book I have seen. I have seen it written, I've heard it said, dreams can come to be, but why are mine dead? We dream dreams between truth and reality. Lovers drift on clouds by the edge of the sea. Silent life painters paint. Thinkers think thoughts that don't relate. Poets write words of life, death and liberty. Prophets preach of what will be. It's no use asking questions and wanting replies, for the truth is the truth and lies are just lies. And what lies between is neither way. It's only the thoughts of what you don't say. So it's no use explaining, it's just the way that I am, haunted by dreams and persecuted by man, who engulfed in their vanity they crave my insanity. In ignorance they have authorized by visions I be crucified. As they gaze upon figures of stone, has all been returned unowned. Like the shell that you are, all empty and bare, as you look at yourself in the mirror and stare. But there is no reply, only the echo of the past, of a life that you knew and of youth getting past. You're threading water far out in the limb, with the burden you carry, you cannot swim. Surely I exist somewhere within this created mould, in this heart that is young, is it not the soul that is old? To put it quite frankly, and I say with respect, this journey I have travelled, I look back without regret. As I look into the mirror at the face that was there, the longer I looked, the more it did stir. A voice whispered quietly from the face therein. We still don't know if I am me. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Jackie Richards is going to read.
I'm going to improvise this evening as one of Antoinette's co-authors for her new upcoming book, that I would have written something that I could share with you tonight. I'm behind in that deadline. It's up here, but it's not on paper. So I'm going to improvise and hopefully I'll be able to inspire you. Because the story that I'm going to write for Antoinette's book is essentially my story about how I went from a quiet, introverted child to this outgoing extrovert that I am now. How I overcame the obstacles of my father leaving when I was young, and he was an angry, verbally abusive man. My mother choosing to join with another abusive, angry, violent man, and going through that upheaval during my childhood. Learning that to survive was to stay quiet, to stay out of the way. But then realising that it didn't always work that way. Taking advice from my stepfather to choose a career that didn't fulfil me. I was good at computing and maths, so it sounded obvious that I would pursue a career in that way. But my heart was more wanting something fulfilling, to give back to people, to share, to support. But I took his advice. I ended up doing a degree in computer science. Sounds really wonderful. I had a career for 20 years in computer science. Sounds great. It wasn't. I was very good at my job. I excelled. I did very well. But I had no heart. I was always stuck between a rock and a hard thing, not knowing how to get out. And every foray I tried to take myself out of this turmoil of not wanting to be here got me even further in, because the money kept me. The money kept me in the industry. The politics, the back chat, the stabbing, I could put up with it, I thought. I ended up having a breakdown. I had to be off work for a number of months because I just couldn't cope. Simplest thing. Could I organise a meeting? Oh no, couldn't do that anymore. I just couldn't. I got to such a low state in myself, I couldn't function. So my story will be about how I went from that gibbering wreck, how I chose, with my partner, to move to Australia. And my focus when I left, I had my 40th birthday the week before we left for Australia. And my goal was, new life starts at 40. I must do something different. So I came to Australia and I started working in the corporate IT industry. Because that's what I did. But it was good in one sense, because I worked for a consultancy firm and they sent me on site at Telstra. And that I could feel all that sort of breakdown emotion starting to come over me. I could feel all those scenarios happening, and I knew then if I didn't jump, if I didn't do something really serious, I would go under again. And so I did. I was fortunate that we could work on one wage. I went back to college. I did a diploma in holistic counselling and mind-body medicine, and I haven't looked back. Through my colleagues at college, I happened to go to a meditation group where the facilitator was a Reiki master teacher who persuaded me to learn Reiki. And so I'm now a stress management and relaxation therapist who also teaches, encompasses Reiki into all that I do. And what I'd like to share is my story through Antoinette's book, but I also teach. So my next workshop, Teaching Reiki, will be in August. So if you're interested in learning Reiki and how to learn more about yourself, because that's been what supported me most in this journey, my next workshop on the 5th and the 12th of August. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Steve. Steve is going to do a stand-up. And the title is Being a Wog.
Probably gathered from my last few talks that I'm still working on a bit of a stand-up routine. I have to say I have tried it twice now at other open mics in comedy venues and been reasonably successful. So if you're interested, you can go see some free comedy at Club Voltaire in North Melbourne on Friday. I might be there. Should be there, the top of the world. So just a warning, this piece has some multilingual swearing, mild blasphemy and sexual references. So, not to offend anyone. Okay, well I'm Steve and apparently I'm a wog. I don't really see myself as a wog, but I think I'm a wog because when people meet me for the first time, they often ask me, what's your nationality? Now there is a simple and accurate answer to that question, but unfortunately it's not what they want to hear. So when they're asking what my nationality is, they're not inquiring into what's on my passport or what's on my birth certificate. They really want to know is what kind of wog I am. So when I answer with this simple and correct answer, which is Australian, they're put out, because it's like I'm sort of accusing them of being passive racist. Which I sort of am, because I sort of are. The problem I have is, though, that even though I know what they're really asking about, is that the alternative answer isn't that straightforward. So, my surname's Italian, but I'm not really Italian. My parents were born in Egypt. My father's parents were born in Sicily. My mother's Armenian descent, but her parents were born in Turkey and Syria. So really I'm a product of multiculturalism. And with this, and that's probably another reason why I don't identify as well, because my parents also came from a multicultural background, growing up in Egypt. So when they came to Australia, they didn't feel the need to associate with any particular expatriate community. So they were comfortable dealing with people with other cultures. And to top it off, they settled in a suburb called St Albans. You might also know it as Snorbans, that's S-N-O-R-B-A-N-S, or St Albans. Now, growing up in St Albans was fantastic because everyone was from somewhere else. But we all thought of ourselves as Australian. We just thought that all Australians had parents born overseas. So in fact, I remember at primary school, the teacher brought up, was talking about new Australians. So it was a big thing in the 60s and 70s that migrants were new Australians. And I asked her, what is a new Australian? So I didn't really associate that with me or my family. But it was great work growing up in St Albans in the 60s and 70s. Multicultural society, lots of different cultures, different foods. And I can now swear in about 5 different languages. I probably could at one stage, actually I had to remember 2. So one is the Maltese. But my late wife's family was from Malta, so if they heard me swearing in Maltese, they would be devastated, so I won't use the words. Suffice to say they involve doing unmentionable things to the mother of our Lord Jesus Christ, which one can never do because she is a virgin. And no man's pee-pee went anywhere near her noo-noo. And the egg that conceived Jesus was not defiled by human sperm, which of course means Jesus had no Y chromosome. Which means that effectively he was a woman who identified as a man, which is really cool. But More about that another time. The other language I learned to swear in is Greek, and the most popular swear words in the playground, Greek words were pushti malaka. I say pushti malaka. These were insulting words to teenage boys. The word pushti is a derogatory term for homosexual, which in the 1970s, the 1970s teenager was insulting because teenage boys didn't like to be referred to as homosexuals. But of course now it's insulting because it's a derogatory term for homosexuals. Thank you very much.
Excerpts from her memoir, and tonight she's reading Flying to Tokyo.
If you remember, the ballet, it toured all of Europe, and then suddenly we were told we're going to go to Japan for 3 months. So I'll take it up from there. Flying to Tokyo. After a seamless flight, we entered the international terminal in Beirut. We'd passed security checks in Rome, expecting to board an American Pan Am flight to Tokyo within the hour. Full of Middle Eastern travellers, with strain and urgency displayed on their faces as flights were cancelled, we groaned when our flight was delayed for 3 hours. There was nothing to do and nowhere to go as people continued to enter the crammed, large hall polluted with smells of heavy stealth tobacco and black coffee. I meandered through the crowd to a small news agency, but they only sold Arabic literature. How I wished I had a book to read. The wait seemed interminable until our flight was called. Chaos followed as hundreds of people rushed each other to form a long line at the departure gate. Robert and the girls joined them, but with the precious boarding pass in my hand, I sat for half an hour until the line thinned. Why so many people? And why did they all look so desperate to board the plane? Had anything happened in Beirut? Was it another coup? But the airport was open, and people were boarding our flight, so no need to panic. Stepping onto the tarmac, hot air hit my face, a relief to escape the stale atmosphere of the terminal. Before me was the largest aircraft in the world, a Boeing 747. Its massive wings held the weight of 4 huge engines, and along the sleek body from head to tail, 2 layers of lights glittered in the darkness from tiny windows. Above these, a few other lights shone from the cockpit. Excitement surged as I mingled with the last passengers, up the small outside staircase, and walked into the big white bird. The layout of the plane was different to any I'd previously encountered, consisting of 7 or 8 seats in the middle, flanked on either side of the 2 aisles with 3 seats. As I moved forward in the dim light, a few Caucasians could be seen in a sea of faces, with no spare seats available. The plane was filled to capacity as the aisle continued on, past several small partition curtained areas. Reaching the back of the plane, the ballet came into sight, huddled together in the middle rows. Robert was relieved to see me, but an Arab was sitting in my allotted seat. "What am I to do?" I quizzed the air hostess. "Don't worry. It's a long way to Tokyo without a seat," I whimpered. "Come with me and I'll find you a place." With a shrug of the shoulders to Robert and waving goodbye to the girls, I trekked behind her all the way back to the front entrance, wondering where she would put me. She exchanged a few words with the senior hostess and entered a small space next to the cockpit. "You can sit with me," she laughed, as she pointed to a long seat capable of seating 3 people, with a chair and a medium-sized table in front. After takeoff, the blonde, with a stunning smile, said, "I must look after the first-class passengers. You'll be all right here if I leave you alone?" "Yes," I grinned. "It's lovely up here and I can stretch out my legs. What's your favourite drink?" "Whiskey." She returned later with a glass of Regal whiskey on ice and a place of assorted French cheeses, nuts, dates and biscuits. "What's your name?" I ventured as she sat down. "Yvette." "Sounds French." "Yes, my mother was born in Paris and moved to Los Angeles when she met my father. We're based there." Light-hearted chatter continued as we discussed our different careers between her duties. Sometimes she'd disappear into the cockpit. Oh. Okay, thank you.
You're allowed to finish the sentence. He's not that scary. Thank you, Pamela. You have been to so many different countries, haven't you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. More to come. Did someone want to say something up there? No?
I even came to Australia.
I just wanted to let you know that the rest of our workshops have been set for the rest of the year. So there are a couple of flyers up on the table there, and our Carmicking Lake Writing Retreat, or the Busybird Publishing Writing Retreat, is in August. We only have 8 spots all together, and they're already starting to book up. So if you've been thinking about it, because a few people have told me that they're thinking about it, please at least express your interest and put a deposit on it, otherwise you will miss out. And we're only running it once this year because I've been away, so it won't be till May next year that we run it again. One other thing that it's a bit of an experiment it's actually part of the school term, so this next school term starts on the 16th of July. So every Monday for 10 weeks in here, because we don't open here on Mondays, I'm actually going to be in here for 2 hours, and people can come in and write. It's called Door Time to Write at Busybird. There is a small fee to cover tea and coffee and things like that. So you do need to book in. The door prize tonight will be one 10-week session, and so it is a chance for people who talk about writing and don't actually do it, because procrastination is the biggest enemy of the writer. So if you were to come in here, so I've set 2 hours, but there will be about half an hour where we might be able to talk to each other. If you've got some, problems that you're trying to solve in your writing, we can brainstorm them. But 90 minutes we'll be timing 90 minutes of actual writing where no one talks, no one does anything, and hopefully we can get a good amount of writing done. So it doesn't matter what you're writing, whether it's blogs or articles, jokes, poetry, whatever it is that you feel like you're stuck on because at home suddenly the dishes look really inviting. Here, you can't do the dishes or anything like that. So we'll be sitting here and it'll be cosy. So that is something that's starting on the 16th of July. If you're interested, let us know. Vicky. I'm not sure if I've met Vicky. Vicky is going to read a poem called Alia. Did I pronounce that correctly? Welcome.
I came here last time. That's my first time. I desperately didn't want to read, so I made myself my poem today. And it's a poem that I wrote about my little girl when she was about 9 months old, and that's 2 years ago now. But it's the first thing I felt moved to write in a very long time. I'll start at the start. So it's entitled Alia, which is her name. Spun moonlight wafts soft around your face. Pearlescent skin lit from within, an ethereal blush. Lazy lids, fringed with fans of the finest feathers. An imperceptible touch, the faintest brush, swells mother's heart. Tears threaten, joy overwhelms, scent held in a breath. A stir so familiar, one again. Heart lurches, a pang of grief, moments pass so fast. Eyes flash, vibrant blue, burn with adventure. Rosebud lips burst into bloom, an impish gap-toothed grin. Legs curled, unfurl, bound to the ground, wonder awaits. A moment frozen to cherish, flipped in one motion.
There's Noni. So Noni's got 2 books out. This is the latest one. What are you reading from tonight?
Rosemary.
So Rosemary's Retribution. Now a lot of things are happening with Noni at the moment, but I don't know if we're allowed to say anything, so I'll let her say if she can or not.
I can say something, but not all the things. But first of all, where's Steve? I would say, Steve. Ah, there you are. Okay, when you say that, when people ask you what you are, and I'm Australian, I get the same look. And I also get, are you a wog? So first of all, I'll just say thank you to Blaise and Kev, always there, and Bo and Les, because all this what's happening, it's all started here. So this is like my holy place. So I would say thanks a lot for you guys for crafting my craft and looking after me. Thank you so much. And yes, there are a lot of things happening, because I would just say don't give up on your creative side, because one thing can lead to another, and that's what has happened to me. I will be producing a show by end of this year, but I'll let you know about this. I'm not allowed to talk a lot. But I was invited to come to Sydney to see a show, and now we are doing it. So it's very, it's an amazing time, but I'll fill you in as the day goes by. There are other things there, but I'm not allowed to speak right now. But I'm pretty sure next month I'll be letting you in. But I'm thankful to Antoinette for asking me to come and write for her. I'm very excited, thank you. And I'm actually being very persuasive with Les to write for us too. I'm sure he will. You will, won't you? I'm sure he will. So, yeah. But tonight I'll just read from Rosemary's Retribution, and thank you so much for people coming up to me tonight and saying that it's been an amazing book, and they're all looking for a sequel. Yes. So I just asked Bo, maybe we shouldn't have cut everything and left it off there. Why? Well, you never know, it might happen, but we'll see. But I think I'll just quickly read from this chapter. You know what, when you have glasses and you still don't look, that's what happens. So it's 15 March 1974 from the chapter Shabana, before Ted's arrival. I don't know whether I read that or not. Shabana divided her hair into 3 sections, left, middle and right. She stood in front of the mirror, tying off her hair in a plait. She took a large chunk of black coal, carefully taking the powder from the beautiful silver bottle that she inherited from her mother, which had been given to her by her grandmother. Now it was hers to inherit, as she soon would be Salman's fiancée. She was hesitant for a while to dress up for her would-be fiancé, whom she called Pai, which means brother, all her life, yet in a few months she would be his wife, calling him husband. Like Mumtaz, she too was hesitant of this engagement. She was educated till the 10th grade and spoke English, which was a big thing in the family and extended family, as no one else spoke English other than Jamshed. Her English was good because when she was in the 6th grade, a missionary came to the Australian consulate for 5 years as a tutor to teach the children living in the diplomat's office. Shabana would often hide behind the door in the corridor as her mother went to the kitchen to help Lalaji in the kitchen. The kids were so happy with the teacher, they were joking and painting, studying in groups and dressing the teacher, not as Sir, but by his name. That is an interesting education, she thought. One day, Jim the teacher saw Shabana hiding behind the door, being caught. She didn't know what to do. Instead, she ran away scared. I'll just leave it here.
There, Joanne. Joanne is going to read a poem called Absence.
Absence. The absence you swallow, horse galloping over the clouds, on your own, fighting to stay alive. It's chirping at the corners, chipping at the corners, squaring off your rounds, characters remoulded, racing down over the dreams. Glass door chatters at your feet. The broken mirror pieces. Who is that? It's you, looking back. Hard thing to recognise oneself through the darkening shadows, through the threshold, stepping into potholes of coffee bean, traces of muddy tracks to the Neverlands, of sugared mountains and peak tops that have closed to you. Breathe out with your own essence. Wave to your singing soul. Gratitude. Not ready yet. You're amongst it.
Thanks, Joanne. Diane. Where's Diane? Hiding it. Diane is going to read some flash fiction, The Art of Communication.
Hello everyone. Okay, here we go. Phew, just made it and managed to get a window seat on the morning train. I feel myself relaxing now, settling in for the 55-minute city commute to attend a professional learning course. It's been years since I caught a train. A distant memory from childhood comes to mind. 13 years old, totally absorbed in reading, twirling my hair behind my ear, a habit I have yet to break, when consequently I missed my train stop. Startled into realisation and starting to panic, I got off at the next stop to wait for the train heading in the opposite direction. That cost me a drawn-out 30 minutes. I look around me now. The seat appears to have shrunk considerably and distance in between. No room to cross my legs, and the fellow adjacent can't help but knock me with his knees when the ride hits a bump on the tracks. No eye contact or sorry though. I feel a little self-conscious. With each station stop, the train becomes more and more crowded. People with expressionless faces are sitting or standing in close proximity to each other. They seem oblivious to their surrounds with their earplugs hooked to devices, and some with fingers tapping. This is the world we live in now. Besides the monotonous recorded voice over the speaker announcing the next stop, a modern commodity which would have served me well in my time, a group of school students get on, breaking the silence with their chatter and giggling. I turn my focus outside. The winding creek is flowing again from the recent rains. Tall eucalyptus gums and thick green scrub outline the tracks. I take in a deep breath, imagining the scent of wet eucalyptus. The sun's rays filter through the trees, and as we speed past, resulting in a surreal effect. The promise of a beautiful Melbourne day. The telltale signs were there, while briskly exercising much earlier under the cascade of shining stars. The breeze, a gentle caress, and then the magnificent show of the sun's rays at dawnbreak, greeting me just as I returned home. The landscape changes from sweeping tree-lined acreage to the density of inner suburbia, smaller allotments and rickety fence lines outlining the rail track. Many fences are defaced or enhanced by graffiti, depending on how you look at it. Some are strikingly artistic, cartoon-like, colourful, purposeful and eye-catching. How awkward it would have been to complete this work under the cover of night, scrambling up with tools in hand, maintaining the position and foreseeing the message to convey. The adrenaline contributing factor with the real chance of discovery at any moment, in contrast to Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. Well, I'm not quite worthy of that comparison. Would-be renowned artists born without opportunity, or perhaps preferring a concealed world. Each day their art is displayed to an audience of critics. Certainly not many would interpret it quite like that. Deciding to walk the distance from Southern Cross Station instead of hopping on a tram to the training course, I find myself weaving through the hustle and bustle of people on the city streets. The impatient push of the pedestrian button, thinking it will get them across the road quicker. Don't think it makes a difference. Over the bridge, the sidewalk cafes of South Bank are alluring with the aromas of freshly brewed coffee reaching my nostrils, which makes my mouth water. Good morning, everybody. Our course today is on identifying communication styles. I smile.
Sarah. Sarah's up the back. Sarah has a short story called Karen.
You have to read fast to get through it all. The air was still in the night. Karen lay quiet as the darkness engulfed her, staring up at the ceiling that felt imposing. Instead of peace, the emptiness that surrounded her brought a discomfort with it, making the small sounds create an uneasy atmosphere in the quaint little countryside bedroom. The walls were a pale yellow shade, the paint peeling back around the deep cracks in the mud brick walls. It was a strange feeling, knowing that she was the only human on the land for what seemed to be endless kilometres spanning in each direction, with one single soul as the epicenter. In her rational mind, Karen knew that there was another property next to hers, but on that particular night, she might have been the only person on the planet. It was always hard to get through this day. February 12th dawned each year, bringing with it a rolling wave of recollections. Karen closed her eyes and could almost feel the vivid sensation of the baby's tiny fingers circled around her thumb. The room smelled of talcum powder all of a sudden, and her kelpie's howls resounding from the homestead lawn resembled a baby's cry more than a canine's. Allowing herself to reminisce, Karen's thoughts flushed to her swollen belly under thorough cotton prints, a heel thudding gently beneath anticipating palms. The inescapable heat, thick with moisture, forced its presence once more this summer, evoking sensations of that fateful February decades ago. Karen stood and walked out to the porch, gazing wistfully at the stars dangling above her. She thought of the child no longer with her, imagining the girl also unable to sleep, her eyes seeing the matching constellations and singular blinking milky lights. Tomorrow would be the girl's 21st birthday, an occasion Karen would have planned meticulously, painstakingly but joyfully, had she been in her daughter's life. As she always did when unable to sleep or simply feeling lonely, Karen brought the little kelpie inside to bed with her. Having the small, sweet-natured companion there reassured her as she felt the steady heartbeat while stroking Lucy's soft, warm belly. The thought seemed frivolous, yet Karen liked to think that her ability to care for this animal would have made for a good mother. Karen remained unsleeping in bed the rest of the night, her head ringing with echoes of February 12th, 1962. The day had been hot, as was typical on the family property north of Echuca. Her little sister, young and unaware of the repercussions of Karen's growing stomach, had not been allowed on the homestead. Her father stalked fretfully across the dusty wooden boards outside her bedroom, his footfalls increasing her anxiety with each contraction of her body. His disapproval, more prominent and full of outrage than her mother's, tainted her pregnancy with grief and heartache. Knowing that the baby would not be hers to raise and love was an ever-present thought that flitted in the 17-year-old's mind through her 9-month transformation. However, when presented with the reality of the situation during labour, the cruelty she would face upon the separation became unbearable. Karen's mother attempted soothing the process, helping her labour as the summer heat and exertion drenched the sheets and the sweat and tears for her stolen future. When at last the glorious shriek of the newborn's pumping lungs was greeted by the hot and dusty world of the farm, Karen could not rejoice, for she knew that the baby could not stay with her. Barely having hours to bond with this new creature of thrill, delight and sorrow, Karen was torn away from what could only be described by his father as a disgrace. The child was a bastard in his eyes, and refusing to see the beauty in the situation would forever be his greatest loss. He took the baby to the nearest town of Echuca. From there she was adopted by a family from Sydney and never again seen by her aching mother. As the morning dawned on Karen, she brought herself back to the present, thinking of the task to be completed in the day ahead of her. The land saw no distinction between this day and any other. There were still fences to be mended, a broken water tank in need of repair, cattle to be fed, and a kelpie needing breakfast. Not even the calendar differentiated. I'll skip to the end. Sitting on the porch with a cup of tea in the cooling evening with Lucy on her lap, Karen sighed out the heartache for the girl she would continue to imagine but would never know. With a sense of finality, she decided she would begin a search for the baby her heart had longed for all these years. She may never be able to recapture the stolen childhood her daughter should have spent with her mother, yet Karen wanted and could have a shared future. That night the cicadas chirped and the heat pressed in, as it always did. Karen slept through the night, dreaming of the reunion with her baby.
Sarah? Anyone who came in late want to read? Did you want to read? No? No? Okay, that's all for the readings tonight then. Anyone have any announcements or anything happening that they want to tell people about? Any readings or any bookish events coming up? We will do the door prize, which, as I said, was a ticket to your writing time at Busybird. It's worth $55, so it's 10 sessions. Obviously, if you don't want it or can't use it, you can give it to somebody as a gift. Everyone got their tickets ready? So it will be Mondays for 10 weeks from the 16th of July from 1 till 3 p.m. So it's Black A1, 81, A81. Yay! Cool. So it's up to you whether you want to take it up. Have a chat to me after. Anyway, cool. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Hang around, have some wine, cup of tea, or food, whatever. And hopefully we'll see you again next month. Are there anything? Was there anything I should have remembered? Else I should have remembered?
No, just the usual things we do. But
yep. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.